I wanted to touch base on an update to the impossible shape. It's not really an impossible shape as I highlighted in the PowerPoint, which I'm looking for right now. But what I did find out is there's a difference in the way that this was done in the past and what's going to work better for you now. So I'm going to share that with you in a brief demo here on using 3ds Max. You're still going to follow through where you create a couple of compound objects. We're going to use boolean operations to do an overlap and basically result in a rounded over box which looks a lot like a die you might use for playing dice. And we're also going to build something that I've kind of nicknamed the everlasting gobstopper. Everlasting gobstopper, yeah, easy for me to say, which is a reference to a Willy Wonka candy from the story. And what that amounts to is 3 different cylinders which are at right angles to each other. In the past, I've been able to use a union operation to combine those into one single, let's call it again, a gobstopper. But what I'm finding is it works much better if you use them as individual cylinders. So I'm just going to show you that final part here. It ties in with the PowerPoint. This will be marked like update for the year, that kind of thing, to make sure you know what's going on. So you won't need to see me as I do this, but I am recording my screen, I do believe. And I'll go through this as a demonstration, and hopefully this will make sense. As always, if you've got a question or a challenge and you want to know what's going on, use public chat, private chat, reach out to me via any one of those formats we've used. You can call my desk. You could respond to remind.com. So email works as well. But let me know what your questions are. I'm getting paid the same whether I'm directly helping you or not, so you might as well take advantage of that. All right? Here we go. Let's see. Snowy morning. We're getting going. This is 3ds Max. And in this scene here, this is called step 1.max. This was just demonstrating that there's one cylinder, one of 3 that we used to use, which goes through the shape underneath it. So let's take a look here through a couple of different versions. I've saved some iterations. And what I was finding is that when I was lining these shapes up, when I'm snapped to the grid, so this one's set, look at the bottom here, we got 0, 0, 0 for the location, and that helps me to line up the shapes. I've created a cylinder here as well. If you have an object selected, you could either use the space bar, or you can click on the lock in the lower bottom here. They work the same. Space bar does the same thing. And you can lock things by using the space bar as well. So with it locked, I can use the move tool to adjust the position. Now in a situation like this, I also have, if you notice on the other side of the screen, I've got one in a standard view called top, and the other one I'm going to lock on the left viewport so I get a clear view of the left. So as I make an adjustment, let me make sure that one's locked on left. I'm going to zoom this out so I can see it's in its entirety. If I were to move this object up and down, I can see the effect in the left viewport as well as my perspective viewport and my front viewport, but it doesn't really make a difference when you're looking straight down from the top because it's right through the middle. So if you were to create a Boolean object where you cut away just one thing, we could put a hole through the middle of the shape. I'm going to grab a later step and show you what that looks like. So we've got a number of these open in 3ds Max. So step 2 looks almost the same. We're going to move ahead to step 3 here. Here we go. On step 3, I've replicated that same cylinder so that there's 3 versions of it. In the 3 cylinders in the past, what I had done, and what the instructions say in the PowerPoint right now, is they say to select one of these objects, and on the Create panel, we're going to create a compound object. Compound objects are selected here. So Create panel's got the plus sign. Instead of using a standard primitive or an extended, we're going to come down to the third option called compound. From there, I'm going to use the word Boolean. And we use Boolean logic when we talked about true and false, yes and no. And what you'll notice here is in the bottom, just like when we made an earlier operation, that we could say, for example, union, meaning to combine, and there's an option here to add operands. Now what the instructions say to do is to add, and I'm going to go over here and do it by name. I'm going to click on cylinder 1, 2, and 3, so that 1, 2, and 3 are all combined into one shape. You'll notice that the icons in the Scene Explorer change a little bit. And now that I've done that, I'm going to deselect Add Operands. So I pushed it on, and I'm going to push it off. And if I were to look at the modify panel, I can see I've got a boolean operation. It's got a color of blue. If I change the color here, you'll see it's reflected in the entire group. So let's change that to yellow just to kind of show you that. So now I've got two different objects. One, which has been a union. Standard instructions were to then have you using the everlasting gobstopper as your selection. So I'm going to leave the modify, go back to the create just to click on another panel. I want to grab the grab the rounded over die. We're going to go back to the create panel. And what the intention was to use a boolean to subtract the other object here, which has been combined. Now when I do a union and I click on add operands and I grab my combined shape, it works fine. When I do a subtract, it worked exactly as I wanted to this way. Alright, great. So it can be done. There's the demo. That's how it should be done. I had a problem yesterday and I couldn't get this to work, so I came up with an alternate means that worked. But that's basically the final operation to create what we're calling the impossible shape. It was just impossible for me yesterday. And then once you've got this shape created, I want you to take this version and create a cooler scene with it. So one of the easy ways to do it is to add a material. And so by touching M on the keyboard, I'll bring up the slate material editor. And as we've played around with physical materials, which are great, these physically based materials, make sure you name them so they mean something. I'm going to double click to make sure the node is active. And I'm going to change the name to something like ice, just to see what one of these might look like as something close to ice. And I'm going to grab a frosted glass, which is a physical material, as the template. Alright, so now if I apply this object, I'm going to slide this over so I can see the output node. If I take the output node and attach it to my boolean object, and I were to render it with a Shift Q, which is a production render shortcut, I'm going to get a view of this object as though it was made out of ice, or frosted glass more accurately. There's not much to this. I don't have a background. I don't have anything else in the scene. You can merge two scenes, and I'll do a quick demo about that a little bit later, so you can see what the impossible shape looks like with other things combined. And we'll introduce the idea of a virtual studio here as well. So as this render's finishing up, I'm going to finish up this video and post it to YouTube for you. Maybe I'll fix it up a little bit. Have fun with this. It's supposed to be a fun class. It should be. Thanks.